Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC hobby. I just picked up a new tool today. It is a Great Plains slot machine. And what this is a powered tool that cuts hinge slots. Now, $25 for a tool to cut hinge slots that, runs on 110 volt wall outlet power may seem like a little excessive. But slotting hinges can be very difficult. Getting them to be in straight lines with the surface can be hard. Also, depending on what surface you're cutting through, that can be very difficult as well. For example, this is a horizontal stabilizer that I'm putting together for a kit. And as you can see, I'm using spruce for the rear surface here. I wanted to make sure that there was as little flex in this surface as possible, and that seemed like the way to go, using spruce. Unfortunately, it's very hard to cut through with an X-Acto knife. Trying to get a hinge slot in here is difficult. Now, I'd thought about using the type of hinges that are kind of like a pin or a bar with a central pivot, and you drill holes through, and that's a good way to go. But they're a little bulkier than a nice flat pin hinge, which is what I'd prefer to use. And I saw this at the hobby store today and thought I'd pick it up and do a video on it for you. And I'll show it in action as well. So let me just give you a quick look at it. Not much to see in the box. Here is the tool itself. And this is the cutting surface, or actually surfaces. It's a pair of reciprocating, oscillating saw blades. They're very small. So I'm going to change the camera angle and give you a demonstration of how this works. It's also my first time using this, so it's kind of an experiment. We'll see if it's a good tool. While I'm doing this demonstration, I'm going to be using another tool that I also picked up today. This is a Great Plains Precision Hinge Marking Tool. A Centerline marking tool is what the product says. Makes a center line on flying surfaces and control surfaces for better hinge alignment. So basically, if you can see the picture here, you angle it until it makes contact with the top and bottom surface, and that will align this little black pin along the center, and you scribe a line. It is unassembled at the moment, so I'm going to put this together and I'm going to demonstrate how this works and then how the saw works. Okay, I have assembled it. It's very easy. You just snap these little feet on either side. Depending on the size stock that you're working with, you can use either this side or this side. This side would be for fairly large surfaces, maybe quarter scale or even bigger. As you can see, the smaller size is going to work fine for most applications. And the way this works is there's this little black thing is basically a threaded rod with a point on one side and an Allen head on the other, so that you can take it out and point it in whichever direction you want and set it to the depth that you need. And then you just place these feet on either side and then twist so that you're in position like this, and then you can slide it along. And I'm not sure if the video is going to catch this, but it scribes a nice groove into the surface, and that's going to be very helpful for using this. I tried this on a small piece of wood. A little loud, and the blades oscillate a fairly good distance. It does try to walk around until you get it started, so you need to hold it firmly, and I think this scribe is definitely going to help. Now, of course, this tool is not going to work for every situation. For example, this is a piece of stock that is going to be the aileron for the wings of the glider that I'm putting together. And if you look at the profile, you can see that the hinge would go right up here at the top edge. This is not a flat surface. I wanted to make the top of the wing as smooth as possible. It would be very hard to cut a hinge slot in here with any method. I'm going to be using either hinge tape, or I'm going to be doing a monocoat hinge. Basically, when I apply the monocoat, have about an extra 1/4 inch off of the edge after I've already covered the downside, and then monocoat that to the wing with a slight bit of space in between the wing's flat surface and this edge, and then use another piece of monocoat along the bottom, just a small strip, and make sure that using the tip of the iron, monocoat the top and the bottom piece together so that they form a line, a flexible point where this surface can move up and down, but not flap around, as it were. So this tool and the saw are not going to be helpful for this type of application, but there are many applications where it is going to be helpful. Rudders, for example, where you wouldn't have a one-sided arrangement like this. The hinges are going to be on the center line, so there's as much the same action left and right. Situations like that, elevators as well, most likely would be the same kind of situation. So I'm going to scribe this, and I'm going to demonstrate this tool and show you what I get. Now, before I start that, I've got a couple of different hinges here that I want to show you. These are the two primary types of hinges I use, the small and the wide Dubro pin hinges. And I've always liked pin hinges over tape hinging or hinges that just use a flexible material. I have an example of those. Just a moment. Hinges like this. It's just a piece of plastic, and it, folds back and forth. It's a little thinner in the middle along this line, but there's a little bit of it's stiff. It's not a free moving piece the way these hinges are, the Dubro pin hinges. Because it is an actual hinge, you get a very nice, very smooth, very consistent movement. So the only downside to using these is that glue can infiltrate into the hinge and the pin area and lock up the hinge or make it stiff, and that is a pain. So you have to be very careful when you glue these together and use just enough glue to get it to work without having it infiltrate the hinge and ruin it, and then you've got a bad hinge that is now glued in. So you definitely have to do these with care, but if they're done right and they are on a center line, which is another reason to use this scribing tool, to make sure that the line for the hinge is completely parallel to the surface, and all of the hinges are in line together. You don't have some hinges bent up and to the left, some hinges off to the right, and that way they're conflicting with each other when they move, and that can cause the surface to deform. I went ahead and just scribed the entire length of this because I haven't 100% decided exactly where I'm going to put the hinges. That's what I'm doing now. And for a surface like this, I'm going to use small hinges. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark these off where I want to put them. And there we go. Made a nice, clean cut. And even though it's two blades, they're very thin, so the hinge is definitely, stiff to get through, but it is equally spaced on either side. Hoping you can see this. Now, the only downside to this, and I don't see any way it could be gotten around, is that there's no way to stabilize it. So I highly recommend using this scribe tool because it actually cuts a groove, which helps you place that blade and keep it in place, keeping it horizontal while you getting it to bite. But making sure that it doesn't travel up or down, you have to make sure that you hold it in the correct position through the cutting process. So, nothing is, 100% easy. It doesn't require some effort on your part. And, just like cooking, it's up to you to make the dish come out, as it were. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of these. I think I've demonstrated the utility of this tool. That's the second cut I've made with it, and I definitely like it. I think it's going to be very helpful and very useful. Is it worth $25? That's for you to determine. You may be able to find it for less. I'm not going to put a link for this. I might look online and see if I can find it at a couple of different vendors. I picked this up at my local store, and I do order a lot of stuff online. The convenience and the lower prices are hard to beat. At the same time, I want to keep my local shop around. So anything that I can buy local, I try to buy local. So this is the rear stabilizer, all hinged. As you can see, it moves very smoothly, perfectly, just the way you want it to do it. Both surfaces are completely aligned with each other. None of the hinges are out of line, and that's definitely largely thanks to this. This is a fantastic little tool. This little scribing aligning tool puts a nice groove. The spruce, the saw cuts through it just fine. The balsa wood, it goes through it like it's barely there. In fact, and this is definitely sharp. As you can see, I gave myself a little nip the second time I was doing it. I was holding the surface and was holding it off the table in my hand, cutting through it, and had my finger a little too close to where the blade was going to come out, and it bit me. So it is definitely sharp, and you can definitely do yourself damage, so be careful. After trying a few different cuts, I figured out how to hold it best, and what I found worked best was to put the surface flat at the edge of the table and hold it down so that your fingers are out of the cutting area, and then bring the saw in from the side. First, placing it in the groove and then making sure it's aligned up horizontally and bracing it. It can walk because you've got two isolating blades. So I used my thumb, these fingers, to hold the surface down, my thumb to brace it from the side, along with this hand to keep it from walking in one direction or the other, and then just pulled the trigger and slowly eased it on in. And that seemed to work really, really well. I'm really happy with this. I think it was definitely money well spent. I thought I would let you know about something I noticed in the directions. The blades that it comes with are for CA glue type hinges. And I noticed when I was placing those plastic hinges that it made the spruce in particular spread a little bit. Not enough to split the wood, but the cut that this makes is very thin. Now in the instruction book, it mentions that it also has there's another set of blades available to it that will create a slot about 1 millimeter. Now I noticed this when I made that first couple cuts, and I ran the blade in and out a little bit and widened out the slot a teeny bit, but you can only do so much with it as is. I am surprised that the second set of blades wasn't included in the kit, considering the price of this tool and how inexpensive a second set of blades should be. I'm very surprised that they didn't include them with it, because only giving the thinner set of blades for CA hinges assumes that that's all you're going to use. And that's a bad assumption. Purchasing this and then finding out, oh, I've got to get another set of blades for the hinges that I primarily use. Not a big deal, but it's something I've got to ask my hobby store to get and wait for it to arrive and then go pick up, or find it online, which is probably going to be harder to do. It'll probably be easier just to let my local hobby store where I purchased this go ahead and order this set of blades. And like I said, I've heard that Great Plains is going out of business, so hopefully those blades are even out there to be found. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. If you click the little bell icon, you'll get notifications every time I put out a new video, and I hope to be doing that at least once a week, if not more.